Hi, Jericho.
Hi.
We're back. I'm back from, I guess I went to Italy for 2 weeks, but it didn't seem like it because the podcasts kept a-rolling.
How was it?
It was good.
What's the best thing you ate?
Linguine and clams anywhere and everywhere. So, yeah, just really good food and wine everywhere, and I feel like a walking piece of bread now.
Fun.
Yeah. But before we get into our interview with Sarah Kunst, who's the founder and CEO of ProDay, I want to talk a little bit about my poodles.
Yes.
So I have 3 poodles.
Uh-huh.
Have you met all of them?
No,
Oh
but
my
I've
God.
seen pictures of them.
I've never brought them to the office.
Please do.
Yeah, I will. It's a lot of work. Even just one is a lot of work. And one is a lot, but when there's 3, they go in 3 different directions and they poop at 3 different times. That's why I like using Link AKC. It is a tracker for your dog. It's a GPS locator, fitness tracker, and more, all controlled through a smartphone app. So you always know where your dog is and if your dog is drinking or cheating on you. If your dog's at the strip club again, you know it's time to talk.
Dog.
So it comes in every size, and it actually has an activity and wellness tracker for your dog as well. Keeping your dog safe, happy, and healthy just got even easier with a special offer from Link AKC. Go to linkakc.com and use code GIRLBOSS to save 30% on your order with free shipping. That's code GIRLBOSS to save 30% on your order with free shipping at linkakc.com. That's linkakc.com. Code GIRLBOSS. Success. It's such a complicated idea, and yet for so long we've all collectively subscribed to a single definition of the word, which was likely given to us by a white-haired dude somewhere in a boardroom in the 1960s. And there's nothing wrong with that definition, with the notion of climbing a corporate ladder with a singular focus. But it's time to make space for a few other definitions, for side hustles and well-being and failing forward, and for the idea that success is a wild ride, not the destination at the end of it. Join me for a journey into the lives of women who are redefining success and paving the way for others with grit and grace. I'm Sophia Amoruso, the founder and CEO of Girlboss Media, and this is Girlboss Radio. Let's travel to a tiny town in rural Michigan. Imagine a town with 1 gas station and 1 stoplight. In this small Michigan town, Sarah Kunst spent her childhood days working on a farm. She took dance classes. She loved art and travel and was super excited when her subscription to Vogue and mail-order Delia's catalogs arrived in the mail. From a young age, Sarah's parents taught her the value of hard work that paid off in spades. When you Google Sarah, for a woman who is just new to her 30s, her list of accomplishments is astoundingly lengthy. Sarah was on the 2015 Forbes magazine 30 Under 30 list. She was named a top 25 innovator in tech by Cool Hunting. Mark Andreessen named her one of his 55 unknown rock stars in tech, and Marie Claire magazine named her a young gun to watch.
Some people really thrive in an environment where the biggest thing is, hey, show up, fit in, talk to people over the water cooler, and you don't have to do anything, but you shouldn't ruffle any feathers. I thrive in the opposite environment, which is sort of jump in, sink or swim, figure it out yourself.
After college, Sarah's hustle and spirit helped her land jobs on both coasts, including a place in the VC world. Innovation is life for Sarah. Her latest project, a fitness app, ProDay, gives you the opportunity to engage with fitness celebrities and world-renowned superstar athletes wherever they may roam.
Every athlete has an interesting life, and we don't see any of it the way that we do celebrity lives, and so that's really what inspired us.
She's equal parts dreamer and doer, and she oozes a confidence that I wish I could bottle and share with you.
Maybe I'd be president right now. I'm too young right now, but eventually, and I would do far better things.
We set up this conversation so that we could deep dive into the world of a millennial founder, but also because Sarah recently did something that many of us may not have had the guts to do. Sarah went public detailing her experience with sexual harassment for a recent piece in the New York Times, exposing creepy, lecherous misogyny that runs rampant.
When it's systemic, and you as a guy know that if you harass somebody in a certain way or with a certain approach, that they're going to doubt themselves or be too meek or whatever to speak up. And even if they do, they probably won't have strong enough proof for everybody else to feel like icky or uncomfortable, and no media company will want to cover it, whatever it is, or no one will want to hire them again because they're a squeaky wheel. You have this system that protects against you so well that you don't really have to do anything to protect yourself. You can literally send email confirmations of your guilt.
To do what Sarah did takes bravery. We'll talk to Sarah about why she came forward after we spent some time with Girlboss.com editorial director Jericho Mandybur. Hello, Jericho.
Hi.
Hey, Jericho.
Hi.
How's it going?
Good. Good,
Well,
thanks.
How was your week?
I saw it.
Oh my
at the
God, so
cinema.
did I.
It was pretty sad.
It's so scary.
But it was fun.
It gave me a migraine.
Really?
It was like
Yeah.
so much.
The banter between the kids was my favorite
It was
part.
really, really well done.
They were cute. Yeah, it was fun. It was really, really fun. And that's not what I want to talk to you about.
What do you want to talk about?
Saying sorry.
Oh, yeah? Do you have something to apologize for?
I'm sorry for everything. You know how everybody says that women should stop saying sorry so much?
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
I think that if you feel like you should apologize for something, you should. I think sometimes it's just not worth it. I'd rather say sorry for things sometimes than have things be uncomfortable. Like, my integrity isn't shattered if I take responsibility for something just to make life easier for everyone involved. I think that's intelligent. I don't think that that puts me in a position of weakness.
Yeah.
But I think maybe for some people, like, it would put them in a position. I don't know, you know?
I think people are very like, if you really mean it, then isn't it like a show of your like strength and vulnerability and integrity and all that stuff? And I kind of feel like, why do women have to say sorry less? Like, why don't men just say sorry more?
I'm
about us
okay
if
with
we're people that are apologizing.
I think apologizing is just kind of courteous.
Yeah.
I've known people who refuse to apologize for things just because they're extremely stubborn, and it's really, really uncomfortable. And it's also, it seems like at a certain point, people are very limited personally when they're unable to apologize. It says a lot about a person if they can't just like get over it and be like, hey, I'm sorry too. Usually more than one person's responsible for something.
Yeah. Time and a place. So on Girlboss.com, there's a story all about this. It's a writer called Sue Tucker, and she's talking about how she has a tendency to say sorry to everything. She says sorry to inanimate objects if she bumps into them. And that's the kind of like overuse of saying sorry that she feels that people need to curb. But she also makes a really good point about what we've just discussed about people saying sorry when they really mean it and with sincerity, and how that's a good thing, and we shouldn't like throw the baby out with the bathwater, so to speak.
Anything else? Oh, do we want to talk about the rally? So we have a very exciting announcement. If you guys don't know, we had a conference, a Girlboss conference called the Girlboss Rally in March of this year. And we had 500 awesome girls from over 15 countries in downtown Los Angeles with over 50 speakers. It was like a Noah's Ark of ambitious girls. We're having another one in Brooklyn on 11/11, November 11th. All day. It's a Saturday. Tickets are on sale now at girlbossrally.com.
Amazing.
Are you going to be there?
I'll be there.
Hell yeah. That's in November. Oh, and then before that, I have a book coming out called the Girlboss Workbook. It's out on October 24th, and it is an illustrated guide to winning at life.
I've seen it. It's really fun.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah,
So it's a totally interactive journal workbook where you can reverse engineer a whole bunch of things, from cover letters to thank you notes to employers, to get advice on how to do your research before a job interview, to making your reverse bucket list and writing down the things that you never want to do in your lifetime. You can pre-order it now, anywhere books are sold.
Cool.
Go do it. Jericho, do you know what I love more than anything?
What's that?
Making ship happen.
Oh,
Sorry. So yeah, I want to talk about ShipStation. ShipStation is a service that allows you to get your online orders out super quickly and keep your customers happy, whether you're using Shopify, Squarespace, Etsy, BigCommerce, WooCommerce, or over 75 other popular selling channels. I wish this was around when I was selling on eBay. It wasn't, and ShipStation creates shipping labels for all the top carriers, including UPS, FedEx, USPS. It is the number one choice of online sellers. And you can manage your orders from your phone. And right now, you can try ShipStation free for 30 days. and get an additional month free only if you use our exclusive promo code Girlboss. Don't wait. Go to ShipStation.com, and before you do anything else, click on the microphone at the top of the homepage and type in Girlboss. That's ShipStation.com. Enter Girlboss. ShipStation.com. Enter Girlboss. ShipStation. Make ship happen. You know what else I like, Jericho?
LaFleur.
Yeah, you have to say it because my accent is not good. Getting up for work is hard enough. Sifting through your closet with the hopes of finding the perfect outfit is that much harder. And some days I really dread trying to figure out what to wear. It's a lot to think about, right?
It's the pits.
I mean, that's why you wear the same thing every day. Right?
Literally, the same thing. I'm like Daria.
I kind of do too. Yes. It's so nice to just have your voice. Like, you can, like, pick your zids and, like, not wear makeup and just wear, like, denim on denim and, like, have a podcast and nobody really cares what you're wearing. But when it does matter, there's
LaFleur.
So now you have help.
LaFleur.
Their goal is to help professional women build a wardrobe of versatile pieces that are machine washable, travel friendly, and reflect you and your personal style. You take a quick online survey, and one of
LaFleur's
online stylists will send you a bento box of 4 to 6 wardrobe pieces, dresses, skirts, tops, and you'll also get a few accessories. They're all picked just for you. It's the best way to experience
LaFleur.
Each
LaFleur
customer works one-on-one with an stylist who helps build her work wardrobe in a systematic, personalized way. Once your bento arrives, you'll have 4 days to try on everything at home before deciding what to keep. You won't be charged anything up front, so you're basically shopping for free. Your whole home becomes a fitting room, and you only pay for the items you keep. Shipping is free both ways. It is not a subscription service, so there's no commitment. To try a bento, visit www.mmbento.com. That's www.mmbento.com. Now let's turn to Sarah Kunst. She's the founder and CEO of ProDay and a brave woman who is speaking out about her experience with sexual harassment in Silicon Valley.
My first 2 jobs were on a farm. I picked strawberries and I pulled weeds, and I hoed a bean field full of really tall weeds.
How old were you?
12. Yeah. My mom's high school boyfriend and his wife, owned this little farm, and they were like, your kids could work here if they want. And so we worked there.
You got to keep the money?
Yeah.
Well, I guess it'd be
weird
pretty
if you had
good
to
give it to your parents.
No, it's pretty good. It was pretty good money. It was like $12 an hour or something when you're 12 in a town of 300 people where the ice cream costs 50 cents.
That's still above minimum wage. That's amazing.
Just think about that. But yes, yeah. It was pretty good money for a kid in summer.
Wow. So you're from Michigan.
I am. It's from Michigan. It's a very small town. I'm going back tomorrow randomly.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I joined a board at Michigan State University because they need better access to technology to venture capital funds. And they also want to be more diverse about who they invest in. And so I joined this board, and I'm the youngest person by 30 years, and everybody's old and white. And I'm
oh my God.
I have some ideas.
You go to school there?
Yeah.
So what did you study in college?
Advertising.
Do you consider yourself a marketer?
Yeah, and that I'm in the business of making money and growing audiences. But
I know. It's what isn't
really.
marketing?
Yeah.
Kind of.
Everything's marketing, because otherwise you're building something that no one's buying.
Sarah's entrepreneurial spirit was clear even in early college when she became a campus ambassador for all kinds of brands.
I was at Michigan State, joined a sorority, needed money, didn't want to work at a mall 8 hours a day and miss out on partying. So I figured I would get a job where I didn't have to sit there at the mall all day, at Bath and Body Works or something. And so I found a job advertisement to be a campus rep for Tag Body Spray, which is it's body spray. It's terrible.
Kind of like
smelling.
Axe.
It's Axe's competitor. And so I would just give it away on campus. I'd go to all the fraternities, I'd give them Tag body spray. So they'd smell like Tag body spray. And then I'd give it to all the girls because you could still smoke in bars, and it's actually really effective when your hair still smells like smoke, you spray that stuff in there. It's better than any dry shampoo at covering the smell and getting it out.
Wow. So you got to party and you were
there you go,
making all kinds of friends with girls.
Exactly. So I was like, I can make your hair not smell like the bar. And then once you have one campus rep job, you can just keep stacking them. So at one point you would go into the student union and I would have my little table and it would be Tag body spray, Apple computers, Red Bull, and Ford motors. Like I had all of it in one table. And so I was making like $75 an hour because I had like 4 or 5 campus rep jobs at once and I would do them all at once, like for 10 hours a week.
Wow.
And so it was just like really efficient. But then I worked for Apple through that and kind of ended up in technology after that.
Wow. And so what did you do as a campus rep for Apple? That's amazing.
They had 3 main marketing messages, that Apple's compatible with Windows and that Apple computers are competitively priced with others. This is pre-iPhone, that Apple computers are competitively priced and that students get a discount. And so it was basically just my job to sort of tell people that. But then I would end up in this weird position where I was like a quasi Genius bar because I'd get calls and I'd be like, my boyfriend's computer crashed and his finals due tomorrow. What does he do? And I'm like, he could try to restart it.
You're like, there's a Genius bar.
But there's not because it's the middle of nowhere, Michigan. So the closest Apple store is like an hour and a half, 2 hours away. So that's why they needed campus reps.
And do you feel like that was great training ground for pitching as an entrepreneur? For like, I mean, when we met, you walked up to me at a conference. Mm-hmm. Which is like, I'm still like kind of scared to do that with people. Do you feel like that was like a great training ground for?
Yeah, I mean, I think it those kinds of jobs where you're sort of alone and you're kind of an outside salesperson and it's like, okay, go do this. You sort of sink or swim. It's not the same. Some people really thrive in an environment where the biggest thing is, hey, show up, fit in, talk to people over the water cooler and you don't have to do anything, but you shouldn't ruffle any feathers. I thrive in the opposite environment, which is sort of jump in, sink or swim, figure it out yourself, and FaceTime doesn't really count for anything. And so I think the people who thrive in that environment are probably already doing that. But I think that it hones your ability to do those things when you start to see, especially I think as a woman, the positive feedback loop of, getting out there and somehow convincing the director of student affairs to let you into the student union when literally every other brand has to pay thousands of dollars for it and you get it for free because she likes you. Like, okay, going out there, kind of standing up, doing your own thing can be lucrative and you can get rewarded for it.
So I'm trying to chart like the trajectory. So you worked at Apple. What took you to California? Was it Apple?
No, actually. I graduated college, moved to New York, worked at Chanel in marketing, and remember sitting at my desk one day and being like, who's Bernie Madoff? And then the entire world sort of fell off a cliff in 2008, 2009. And I shifted over to digital media and worked for a couple digital media startups in New York, doing sort of the stuff now that seems so obvious, but I was on the business side. So I'd be like, let's like run a contest. And if people like our tweets, then we'll enter them in a contest. And it was like really, kind of like groundbreaking at the time. And so sort of was part of the rise of a lot of the kind of, I would say like second wave of digital media after the first wave was kind of the Daily Candies of the world. And then in like Women 2.0 and that kind of stuff. And then there was this other wave of sort of, Thrillist and College Humor and a lot of those. And I worked for companies like that and then eventually ended up at a startup, a venture capital backed startup that was in San Francisco, but I was in New York running the business side. It was around fashion, like kind of shop the look. Here's how to get your own, whatever jean jacket that you get inspiration from a model on. And we had a lot of big investors. And so then when that company ran out of money, I was talking to an investor and kind of asking her, hey, like, what do I do? How do I stay? How do we keep the company alive? And she's like, the company's definitely not going to live and that's okay. Like deal with that. But you seem like you understand venture and you have interesting perspectives on investing. And she'd send me things and be like, what do you think about like candle sales. And I was like, oh, like, Sensations is like a $3 billion business of people who are like, want candles but are afraid to use flames. And like, the whole candle warmers are huge. But all this stuff. And she was like, okay, I think you can be an investor. I think you'd be good at this. So I worked for her, so did that. And then when I decided to start my own company, decided that LA or San Francisco is a better place to do that because of the access to venture capital. And so moved there only like 3 years ago, started my company. And then as it's kind of growing a little bit beyond the seed stage, some of my investors kind of said to me, hey, it seems like you're having a hard time hiring in San Francisco. Why don't you hire more in LA? Why don't you hire more in New York? And I started to look at it and I was like, that's a good question. I think I'm going to actually move to LA and be able to do that hiring easier. And so now I'm here.
Welcome to LA.
Thanks.
So tell me about starting ProDay. Tell us what ProDay is to begin with.
Yeah, so ProDay is a sports media company. Basically, I grew up in the Midwest, loved sports, and, would spend a lot of time tailgating, a lot of time, the 96 Bulls were my favorite team, and got to this point where I was like, wait, why do I know so much about any celebrity, right? Like people like Jennifer Aniston, who is great, but not like my number one celebrity. I can tell you so much about everything she does in her life. But then somebody like Michael Jordan, who I'm adopted, and like I would always say when I was little, I'd always be like, God, I hope Michael Jordan's my birth father, right? Because when you're adopted, you spend all your time thinking about that. So, I don't know how many kids he actually has, right? Like this could be my half siblings. They're not, but they could be, And so I realized there was this disconnect where we love sports, we watch sports, we spend a ton of money on sports and sports gear. Like think about the fact that no matter how much you love a brand post, let's say 1999, it's relatively unlikely that you're wearing that brand literally on your back, right? Whereas sports and getting it tattooed or something is even less likely, whereas millions of people have Michael Jordan tattoos. Like wrap your mind around that, right? And almost every guy that if you open up his closet, you will find some athlete's name on some piece of clothing, but we don't know anything about these people. We don't know, where they live, what they do for fun, the charities they work with, what they eat, what their kids look like. They all have adorable kids for the most part. For the most part, they all have kids. All their kids are adorable. They do have. And they're cool and they're fun. They're doing interesting things. They're giving back to the community. They're doing all this stuff and we just don't see it unless it's an example like somebody like Magic Johnson, who you do see it because he's just so much larger than life, and had, obviously for years a very kind of public story and narrative. But every athlete has an interesting life, and we don't see any of it the way that we do celebrity lives. And so that's really what inspired us. We started with fitness and nutrition because the things that athletes do to work out and eat, it's really fascinating. It's also really useful when you're trying to like get in shape and you realize like, oh, I just have to work a lot harder and eat a lot cleaner, which is sort of depressing. Like,
yeah,
it's really depressing.
Yeah, I know. I spent 2 weeks in Italy and ate like pasta for breakfast. It was like, oh.
Yeah, that's probably not going to be on like a athlete's meal plan unless they're carbo loading, which even the huge guys do it so much less frequently than you would think. It's so depressing. But, so we really started there and then went into style and culture and politics. Now we do a lot of because of the things that are happening with like Colin Kaepernick and Trump and all of that. So we have really expanded our focus, and the athletes love it because we might be the first people to interview them and talk to them about some of these issues. And, the fans love it because we're bringing them a whole new side of their favorite athlete that's so obvious, but nobody ever covered or talked about before.
Yeah, and that people are Googling that stuff.
Exactly.
Like, is SEO pretty big for you guys?
SEO is a big part of it, especially on social media. We're super active on social media. It's a great place for this stuff to live because no matter how big of a fan you are of any athlete, you can't keep track of every athlete in every sport. And there's always something kind of interesting popping up that you just wouldn't find another way. And so we sort of aggregate a lot of that. And then a lot of our original reporting, it's interviews and it's features. And it's just talking about either a different take or a story that maybe other people kind of overlook and forget because it's not, hey, here's who's going to win the Super Bowl.
So tell me about starting your company. What was the first thing that you did?
the first thing I did, like literally the first thing, I was watching Ballers, because The Rock is responsible for all of my good ideas. And so I was watching Ballers and I was like, wait, these guys have such cool lives. Like, why don't we see more like kind of inside the life of athletes? So I posted on Facebook and I was just like, hey, does anybody know a former current professional athlete I could talk to? Preferably NFL or NBA. And a few people responded and they were like, yeah, this person. So I reached out to them and I was kind of just like, hey, when you're playing and then even when you're done playing, like, one, what do you do with your time? And two, what kind of press opportunities do you have? And it became apparent really quickly that the majority of their opportunities were focused on, did you win? Did you lose? Are you going to win? Are you going to lose? But their lives, especially, by the time you're 35, right, and you're a pro athlete, that's young in like people years, but in athlete years, you've been playing this sport day in and day out for probably over 2 decades. And yeah, you love it, but it's not the same sort of level of intensity and passion that you might have when you talk about the new restaurant that you want to open or the charity that you're working on and like changing kids' lives, right, or your own kids. And so there was just a lot of excitement around that, first around fitness and nutrition. And then as we've expanded our focus, people are continually sort of expanding with us, and they're really happy that we care about what they do kind of off the field.
Did you raise money before you started the business?
I did not. I raised money right after I started the company. The LA Dodgers do an accelerator, and I, with RGA, which is an ad agency, and I found out about the accelerator. It was already closed. They'd already accepted all the companies. The companies were going to start in 3 weeks. And I was like, well, I have to do this accelerator. And so because I'd spent a long time in the tech world, just getting to know people, helping people, doing good work, being around, being somewhat visible, I literally spent a weekend and I messaged like 10 people, 20 people, and had them all message who knew the Dodgers or the RGA team. I was like, you have to message them and tell them to let me into their program. And so they started messaging. I didn't tell them. This is like kind of crappy, but it worked. I didn't tell them that I told all these other people to do it. So, because then they'd be like, oh, well, we'll see what they say. So they just all did it en masse. And then the Dodgers at first were like, no. Okay, fine. I was like, okay, great.
That's great.
And then I talked to them and they were like, well, we don't know. It's too late. I was like, no, really. They're like, okay, fine. And then I was in. So then I came down to LA for a few weeks and had literally no deck, like nothing. I came up with the name the morning before my Dodgers call. I was talking to a friend and I was like, what should I call the company? He was like, I don't know, call it ProDay. I was like, okay, what's a ProDay? Which, ProDay is when you go work out. If you're a collegiate athlete and you want to make it to the pros, you go work out with the pros so people can like see if you have what it takes to be a pro. And I was like, that's catchy, 2 syllables, easy to spell. I can get the URL. Perfect.
Name.
Done.
Yeah.
And part of it, I think, especially as an entrepreneur, is if you want to run fast, you have to be willing to like run fast and not sort of need to stop every few minutes. And so literally, that's the name, and it still stands up now, but it's funny because I didn't sort of freak out and try to focus group it for 2 weeks. I just said, okay, that's the name. Figure
I got
the rest
really
out later.
far with a company called Nasty Gal, which is still shocking. But yeah.
But you just do it and you go and the rest works itself. Like Google's a thing. A really big thing, I hear.
And even Goop. I mean, no offense, Gwyneth. She was on this podcast a couple weeks ago, but that's a tough name.
Yes, it's totally a tough name that literally has an entire meaning that is not
what it is.
Great.
Yeah.
But you can do it. And I think that's the biggest thing that you learn is you just sort of say like, okay, I'm going to get into this accelerator, even though it's completely impossible. I'm just going to do it. I'm going to name this company. And you just sort of do stuff. And the self-efficacy of just doing it means that you tend to get somewhere.
You have to just do stuff.
Yeah.
A lot of people want to have their companies buttoned up and perfect before they go out and, even establish their domain name or email address or make a business card or just even have a conversation about it. And I'm much more kind of like a walking focus group. I don't know if I necessarily believe in being as precious as I think some people will advise you to be.
You can't be. If you are precious, think of it like when you build a house, right? You build some super fancy Malibu estate or something that's kind of a spec home and it's like your thing as an architect and you finally sell it to some obscenely rich person. The first thing they do is say, I'm going to renovate it, right? Like even the most perfect house, from the most perfect architect is still going to get renovated. Like, it's always going to change.
Someone used to describe this to me once by saying, like, you start with a skateboard and then you build a bike. Like, it's a skateboard, it's got 4 wheels, it's fine. Eventually you put, like, the frame on and, like, the handlebars and the seat. But, like, you start with a skateboard and you're always moving.
Exactly.
So how long after you entered the Dodgers Accelerator program until you raised your seed round of funding?
I kind of started raising money immediately and accidentally. I had already had a coffee on the calendar with Ariel Zuckerberg and got there as 2 or 3 weeks into the Dodgers program. So my company was like 6 weeks old at this point. And I was telling her about what I was doing and she's like, great. And I was like, yeah. She's like, well, so can I invest? I was like, yeah. And then we hugged and I was like, oh, I guess I'm fundraising. So it sort of just happened. And, there were a lot of small checks. It's weird because I really did a friends and family round. It's just that I did like a friends and family round except for the LA Dodgers, which are owned by a $2 billion hedge fund. And then my friends and family were a bunch of like really big name people in tech. And I think that's why sometimes from the outside things look so different when you look at people's success or when you look at what people are trying to build. Because for me, for all intents and purposes, it really is just friends and family, right? It's just that you end up with interesting friends and family after a while.
How did you get such interesting friends in tech?
The reason is that from the age of like 23 on, when I started working in tech until I was like 28, 29. So I spent like 5-6 years just being kind of around and doing my job, doing my work, but always taking on more responsibility, always being willing to do more things, and always being willing to help people and being really easy to work with on kind of every facet, right? Like showing up and working hard are things that you just sort of take for granted that you have to do. But a lot of people don't. Then all of a sudden you're out working them, and you're actually there working. And I just have also done a lot of favors for people over the years and not like big favors. I've not for the most of my career had enough power to do big favors. It's just like weird, dumb little things. Like there were a couple years in New York where I worked in nightlife media. And so I met all these billionaires through that because we'd be at a tech party or we'd be at a tech dinner and they'd be like, oh, like, have you heard of this club? And I'll be like, yeah, like, do you want me to physically like take a half hour out of my night, walk you to the door and tell the doorman this person is an important billionaire, even though he's wearing khaki shorts so that you can get in? And they were like, yes.
Aww.
And I'd be like, sure, okay. But then those favors kind of come back and help you.
We'll get into more with Sarah Kunst in a moment, but first I want to tell you about my favorite way to relax. Jericho, have you tried Zeal yet?
No, I'm dying to.
Oh my God, I'm dying to because I just got off a flight and my neck didn't move yesterday, so I'm going to be calling Zeal. Actually, not calling them because I don't like talking on the phone. I just have to push a few buttons in their app on my phone, and a world-class masseuse is in my home with like the largest, most comfortable massage table you've ever seen. I mean, something we talk a lot about is self-care, and it's a bit of a privilege. Zeal makes it more accessible and brings it to your home. So if you don't have a car, it comes to you. So you can book a massage far in advance. You can book it the same day. An incredible masseuse. You can choose male or female. Shows up at your house. You can choose which kind of modality you prefer, how long you want the massage to be. Once they're there, you can actually extend it if you'd like to. And they have this incredible subscription service where you get a huge discount if you subscribe to Zeal. But you don't have to subscribe. You can just book a single massage and see how you like it. And it's extremely safe. So not only does Zeal have a thorough vetting process for therapists, but they also take it a step further and do an ID verification on customers, so they keep their therapists safe as well. Zeal is the most trusted name in massage. It's super fast and easy. The tip is even included. No money changes hands. Nothing is awkward. and they have over 9,000 licensed therapists who will bring their table, music, everything you need to turn your living room to a spa for a 5-star massage. To help you get started, our listeners can get $25 off your first massage by using the promo code GIRLBOSS at checkout. And it gets better. Sign up for Zeal's massage membership and get 20% off all your massages, plus a free massage table and sheet set. That's a $380 value, yours free. There's no initiation fee to join the membership, just a great additional savings on top of the $25 discount you get anyway by using the promo code GIRLBOSS. So go to Zeal, spelled ZEEL.com, or go on Zeal's iPhone or Android app and make sure to click Add Promo Code at checkout and use our exclusive code GIRLBOSS to get $25 off your first in-home on-demand massage. So you started raising your seed round accidentally, and then...
When you're a startup, I think to some extent you're always fundraising. You're probably kind of always fundraising until you sell the company, and then you're always looking for a buyer. But because that's sort of the nature of as you build something and you're doing cool things, you get more opportunities that are inbound, and opportunities, even if not directly, tend to have some cost associated with them, or you want more people so you can exploit them and grow faster. Exploit the opportunities, not the people. And so you just sort of end up in this position where you need more capital. And luckily, you know, we live in an environment, it's still not a great funding environment for women always compared to men, but we live in an environment where there is a mechanism to get more of that capital on pretty good terms if you can convince somebody of your vision.
Attention, investors, if you're listening. Companies big and small, if you're not funding women and minorities, no matter how well-intentioned you think you are, you suck. A true ally puts their money where their mouth is.
The fun thing about being an investor is it's basically your job you write a couple checks. You don't write a lot of checks. And I was a more junior investor, so I was writing even fewer checks. So your entire job just becomes helping entrepreneurs build their business, and to some lesser extent, helping other stakeholders in the industry. So whether that's, you know, if you run into a tech reporter, you want to make sure that you're helping them connect to sources for stories so that they, you know, like your companies, or if you're, or if you talk to a CEO of a huge company, you know, kind of a legacy company, and they say, look, we really need to figure out e-commerce. Do you know anybody in e-commerce? You're like, yes, I can connect you there. So you're sort of, all you do kind of all day is connect and help people. And I love to do that. And so it's really fun. That part of it is awesome. The harder parts of venture capital, one, especially in Silicon Valley, is it's almost completely a male-dominated industry. And the issues that spring up from that range from sort of, one, if you're a woman who's not a guy, there's a famous hotel right by all the venture capital funds in Sand Hill Road in Silicon Valley called the Rosewood, and sort of where you go for meetings because there's nothing else there. And multiple times I would be there waiting for a meeting, and guys would come over to me and start asking me if I was a hooker. And I'm like, the politics of sex work aside, like, no, I'm wearing a button down and like dress pants. But because the idea that there would just be a attractive young black woman in this circumstance, the only role they could think that she might have was a hooker.
That makes me like want to cry.
Oh,
like,
I mean, it's insane.
That's so insane.
Yeah.
I've been there.
Yeah.
I haven't spent that much time. I mean, maybe I wasn't waiting long enough, but holy shit.
It's when you're completely alone and you're sitting there waiting. And the funny part is, one of the guys, then I saw who he met with later, and I knew the guy he was meeting with, and I was like, oh, wow. But I didn't say anything. I usually do, but that time I didn't. So, you know, that kind of stuff where it's just like weird and it's bizarre and creepy, to, you know, the other extreme. Like, I was recently in the New York Times a few months ago now this summer talking about how I'd been sexually harassed when I was applying for a different venture capital job looking to a few years ago. And, you know, this guy, Dave McClure, was like, yeah, like, I want to hire you, and kept talking and, you know, had a few more meetings. And I was like, I don't know if I want to hire you or hit on you. And like is texting me this at 3 a.m. after we were at a conference together. And I was like, what's wrong with you?
So tell me more about that, because that made so much noise. And, it, you know, and you are one of many women who have come forward now and talked about the rampant sexism and harassment in venture capital and in tech world.
It's crazy. Like, one, it's just full out crazy that all these guys are doing this. And one of the more like, there's sort of the absurd parts of it and then just like the terrible and tragic parts of it. One of the absurd parts is these are all like on paper, they're intelligent guys who have a deep understanding of tech and they've spent their whole life in it. And almost to a man, all of them have been brought down because there's a paper trail. And you're like, dude. So that's sort of the part where it's absurd and you don't laugh, but you like almost, you're like, okay, well, you know. And then the rest of it is just, yeah, it's really inappropriate. And I think for a long time, women experienced it and felt like maybe it was just them or they had done something wrong or they didn't feel like they could say anything because it would hurt their career. And so they just kind of kept quiet. And then I think because of women like Ellen Pao, who came forward and has a book coming out called Reset about her experiences suing a huge venture capital fund because of sexual harassment that they wouldn't do anything about, you know, the conversation started to change and largely tech reporters started to want those stories. And so they went from not wanting to talk about it, not wanting to name names, the reporters, to begging for more names, more women, more guys that they can, you know, kind of expose. And I think that that's hugely shifted the tide, and it's gotten everybody from, you know, the venture capital funds themselves to the people who invest in venture capital funds to startup founders, boards. You're just seeing a lot more of a somewhat begrudging sometimes, but a lot more of an acceptance of, oh, we have to get rid of the men who are doing this inappropriate stuff and we need to hire more women.
How did it feel when Dave McClure said that to you?
It's so weird in the moment when something like that happens because you almost, I think we've all had moments like this, you know, whether it's sexual harassment or other kinds of harassment or something just crazy that happens where you can't, like, you're like, wait, I must have missed something, or like, is this a joke, or do I not get it?
Did I accidentally wink at this person?
Yeah, like, what is happening? And so there was that, but then it was also weird because he, you know, I saw him the next day at the next day of the conference, and he acted like everything was normal. You know, it was like, okay, like, here's the next steps in the job interview process. So then you're sort of like, wait, is this some sort of like bizarre hazing where you just, you know, you say this and like you want to like see what I'm going to say, but then like everything, and then like a few months later, of course, I get the call that's like, oh, Sarah, we can't hire you. You're too aggressive. And I was like, what? Wow. You know? And so that was really, and I think it was only after that I realized, okay, this isn't like some bizarre hazing ritual of Silicon Valley. This is just straight up like he was telling me about a job that may or may not have even ever existed in order to, because I'd already known him, and that's why I was talking to him about the role, and not like going through, you know, like a fill out an online form interview. So he was sort of leveraging that to be able to do this. And then now with what I know about, you know, I know at least 10 women that he's harassed or assaulted, and in their stories are sort of all the same. He, you know, kind of takes the work situation, pushes it like, oh, later at night, let's add alcohol, like, let me shoot my shot. And then, you know, follows up with like a message just confirming my harassment. It's so bizarre. I know.
I think that's the sad, you know, I mean, I think that everyone knows or knew that there are perpetrators in their communities that are allowed to behave this way because they're in a position of power is, I don't know, it makes everyone really complicit.
Yeah, it's gross. But I think for a lot of these guys, there's sort of just, it's systemic. This is like my little rant, but it's systemic oppression or it's systemic harassment because the system works, right? Because if anybody is just doing something as a one-off, it's not systemic, and there's no inertia that's going to keep the ball rolling down the hill. When it's systemic, and you as a guy know that the odds that if you harass somebody in a certain way or with a certain approach, that they're going to doubt themselves or be too meek or whatever to speak up. And even if they do, they probably won't have strong enough proof for everybody else to feel like icky or uncomfortable, and no media company will want to cover it, whatever it is, or no one will want to hire them again because they're a squeaky wheel. You have this system that protects you so well that you don't really have to do anything to protect yourself.
Right now, you may be thinking about the time something like this happened to you. My bet is that all of us right now are thinking about the time or times that some dude said something weird and we didn't know what to do with it. How did you respond? Did you respond? And what can we do to prevent it from happening to our friends and those around us?
I told people behind closed doors for a long time, mainly just other women who were young and, asking, hey, should I, talk to Dave? Should I, talk to his fund? And I would tell them, like, look, talk to his fund if you want. I wouldn't meet with him alone. And at one point when that was said in like a small Facebook group and his co-founder, Christine, saw that and sort of was like, well, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't think that anything's ever happened, blah, blah, blah. So I knew her and I messaged her and I was like, Christine, look, here's what happened. Here's the proof, all of that. And that was last November. So November 2016. And she just didn't respond. She just didn't. She was kind of like, well, I don't know what you're talking about. Dave doesn't know what you're talking about. I was like, here's the proof. And literally, no word since. After that, when other people started coming out with more stories and there was this willingness on the part of the media, on the part of the public, and the part of the tech community to stand up and say, wow, this is wrong, and to do something about it. When the New York Times came to me and, Katie, the reporter, was very smart about it. She was like, oh, I just want to talk to you about women in tech. I was like, okay. So we sit down for lunch at coffee shop in New York, and she's like, so Dave McClure. And I was like, oh, I have good stories. And then it just kind of went from there. And it really happened over the course of 5 days.
How did she?
Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, it wasn't supposed to be a secret. I figured at some point I would address it. I just thought that I would be like, a billionaire with like beautiful babies and a husband. And instead I'm like a single struggling startup founder. And now every time I go out on a date, guys are like, I Googled you. And I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, it's really,
oh my God,
it's really fun to be on Bumble with me right now.
Holy shit.
It's wild. It's wild.
Yeah. So were you concerned about backlash? What was that like, putting yourself out there with a story that would make your Google search results different for the rest of your life?
Honestly, I didn't really think about it. It was sort of like ready, aim, fire, because I do press, right? And I'll talk to people about sort of general things about tech or media or sports or whatever. So I didn't really think that much about it. And then once I had decided to do it, it felt right. And there was just kind of momentum going into it. And it was just happening, right? And I kind of held my cards close to my chest, meaning that I'd showed the reporter, what he had said, but I didn't provide her with what she needed to go to legal at the New York Times and get them to approve it for publication until, closer to publication, so I could make sure that I was comfortable with the rest of the story and all of that. I didn't feel like I had that much to lose. There are always people on the fringes who, I had one fund that I was talking to about investment who a couple days after the article came out emailed me and very politely were like, oh, I'm so sorry, we can't invest. We don't like the market size. I'm like, yeah, ESPN's a really small comp, but it is what it is. But those people, were they ever going to be my in the trenches champion anyway? No. Maybe they would have been good for a couple $100,000, which would have been great. But I ended up getting that money from other sources of people who reached out and said, look, we like what you're doing and we were so impressed with your sort of character and willing to speak up and do the right thing that we know that we'll trust you as a CEO. Here's money.
Our beloved Beyonce once said, I don't like to gamble, but if there's one thing I'm willing to bet on, it's myself. Sarah Kunst? Same. It's a good reminder for the rest of us, too. And when it's your turn to stand up and speak out, always tell your truth. And bet on yourself.
You always want to keep the most impeccable receipts possible. And I think that if you don't have, hopefully whoever's trying to harass you is stupid enough to then send you text message confirmation of the fact. But if they're not, and if they do, screenshot it, save it 25 different places, back it up, make sure that you have that evidence. But writing out what happens every time something happens is really helpful for keeping your memory fresh. And also because a lot of times when you're a woman, people will say, are you even people who are sympathetic, right? And on your side will say, are you sure? Maybe that's not what happened. What exactly did he say? And you sort of, and it's even if it's not something, even if it's not rape, it's traumatic and weird to have to keep reliving and reliving and
Why
reliving.
Why didn't I get that job?
Yeah.
Because I didn't flirt, because I didn't
exactly.
go on a date,
yeah, he said this.
Shot.
Yeah, why was this? And so even if it's something, small, you're in somebody's office and you notice that they have, whatever porn all over the, stack of porn mags or something. I don't know who would have magazines anymore.
Have you experienced that too?
No, but you see weird things, right? And just make little notes and keep in mind that they might not be anything, but you're sort of like a detective, right? Looking at some point for clues when you go back to say, how did this happen? What happened here? The other thing is, if things do escalate to a point where you're like, okay, this isn't a weird, oh, maybe that's why I didn't get the job. This is almost definitely something. Literally, the craziest part about all these situations, if you work for somebody, or if it's a work situation, you only have like a year to file a complaint. And so there's the statute of limitations is essentially a year on all these things, sometimes 3 years. So if something happens, you have to go to the Equal Opportunity Commission and you file a complaint with them. And they come back to you and they tell you whether or not they grant you the right to sue. If you get the right to sue, then you can sue the company. If you don't get the right to sue, then you can't sue the company or the person for sexual harassment, like in a workplace setting. And it's the same with ageism and a bunch of other kind of racism, all these things, right? You basically have to go ask somebody else, a different organization, to allow you to, kind of call them to task. It is weird. And the harder thing is when you think about it, a year, and that includes like holidays, weekends, whatever, from the time something happened, you might not even it might not even be fully played out yet, right? Like it's a weird, hard situation. So the other thing is, if you think something's happening, literally Google sexual harassment lawyer and in your state and call somebody.
Absolutely. So we have time for just a couple more questions. What we're exploring with Girlboss is this concept of success. And, it's a construct that was built by and for white guys. And some of us have figured out how to like play in that wheelhouse, and others are creating our own or, questioning it within the, power, the structures that exist. And it's not just financial, it's personal. Success should just, it shouldn't just be in one direction. And I don't want to answer the question for you, but everyone has a different idea of what that means. What does success mean to you?
I think for me, success is, I'm a business person. I really enjoy the intricacies of business. I've bored many dates by trying to like explain to them passionately about how in LA all garages should be, destroyed and turned into mother-in-law units that can then be rented out. Like, I just like business, even really like boring things about business. My dad sells insurance and I find it fascinating, not just because he's great, right? So, for me, I want to be in business. I'll always be in business. Because I'll be in business, the way that we keep score in business is money, right? The way that you keep score in, heart surgery is how many people are still alive after you give them a heart transplant. Even if you weren't making any money, then you could maybe feel successful. So I do care about money. I also see how look, Donald Trump would not be president if his dad wasn't rich. And that is as true of a fact as I have. And I think that Donald Trump is a terrible person and president and doing horrible things to the country. So does money matter? Yeah, because if my grandfather was that rich, right, then maybe I'd be president right now. I'm too young right now, but eventually. And I would do far better things, even though not perfect things.
I could see you.
Sarah Kunst 2024. No, I'm just
God.
joking.
No, I'm voting. I'm sending my ballot in now.
Perfect. So I do think money matters. That being said, rich people who are unhappy inside it's like the worst cliche, and it's probably the only thing worse than that is being poor and unhappy inside. But so money matters, but I think it's having a sense of fulfillment and contentment with your life, and it's sort of waking up every morning and looking around, and it's not that you don't have challenges, because everybody has challenges, but it's surrounding yourself with challenges that you're excited to tackle and that you're excited to solve and to build and to fix, and surrounding yourself with people that you like. I think a lot of times it's easy to feel sort of isolated because there's so much technology around us that you don't have to interact with other people. So just finding ways to interact with and stay in touch with and be with people who make you happy, and also just accepting what makes you happy, right? Some people feel like they feel like a jerk because they say, oh, I really want a boyfriend, or I really want a dog, or I really want to learn how to surf. Like, don't feel bad about what makes you happy. Just go find a way to put it into your life and make sure that your priorities are stacked so that you have space for it. And if you can do that and pay your rent and you're probably going to be happy.
Mm-hmm. As long as the boyfriend's not the only thing you want.
Exactly.
He's paying your rent, because then if he goes away, you might not be able to pay your rent.
Exactly. You never want a man to pay your bills.
Confidence is the thing that separates those who dream from those who do. And Sarah Kunst is confident. At the end of our conversation, I asked Sarah to tell me about her most recent Girlboss moment. I expected her to have about 100 of them.
So actually earlier today at the massage, I always have my phone on silent, but my phone was not on silent for some reason. And so it rang, and I was like, oh no, I know exactly who it is. And so I'm, getting a massage, and the phone rings, and it's Gretchen Whitmer, who's running for governor of Michigan, because we're talking about a fundraiser I'm going to help her with. And I was like, this is such like an Ari Gold moment. Like you're getting your massage and the phone's ringing and you're like, oh, tell the governor. And it just was so funny and surreal. Like, granted, it's like a Groupon massage, and like she, left 20 minutes early, and I couldn't answer the phone. But it's still, and Gretchen's not governor yet, but it's still one of those moments that if somebody described it to you 5 or 10 years ago, you'd be like, really? That's going to happen to me? And it's just sort of fun to have those and sort of sit in that moment before kind of moving on with the rest of your life.
That was Sarah Kunst. For more about her company ProDay, visit proday.co. Thank you so much for hanging out with me and Girlboss Radio today. Remember, you can buy tickets for the Girlboss Rally at girlbossrally.com, and you can pre-order my next book, Girlboss Workbook, anywhere books are sold. And for more great features from Jericho and the incredible Girlboss editorial team, check out girlboss.com. Follow us on our socials, anywhere at Girlboss. And remember, sharing is caring, and subscribing is really important for our podcast to rise through the ranks of mostly dudes, almost all dudes in the business section, where we reached #1 a couple weeks ago.
Yay!
Oh my God, I'm so sorry, Tim Ferriss. I love you, but,
Not sorry.
gotta make a little room. Not sorry.